The Jewish people have one claim to one country anywhere in the world. That's the land of Israel.
I just want to get clean.
Okay, no, that's fine. And that is the land of Israel. And so there's a mistake that the Jews left Israel 2,000 years ago and never returned, and didn't return until 1948. It's not true. The Jews never left. Some of our greatest books were written in between the so-called period of exile and the modern period of the modern state of Israel. So the Jerusalem Talmud, rabbis like Yosef Cairo and the Rambam all visited and lived in Israel. And so the Jews never left. Before the Islamic conquest, there was around 400,000 Jews living in the north of Israel. And so what happened was those Jews and Jews around the world looked at the oppression, looked at the persecution that they experienced under the boot of Christians and Muslims and atheists, and said, enough. We need our own nation. We need to live as free people in our own country. And the only country that they have any claim to, that we have any claim to, is Israel. So Jews began moving there and joining the Jews that were already there towards the end of the 19th and beginning of the 20th century. They started building up all the infrastructure that is state apparatus, things like electricity plants, roads, courthouses. They started building the national institutions, and the British, who were the custodians of the land at that time after defeating the Ottomans, who were the previous custodians, were granted the land, or a mandate over the land, by the League of Nations on the condition they establish a Jewish national home there. Interestingly, the first thing that they did when they received that mandate of Palestine was give 78% of it to the Arabs. And did the Arabs call it Palestine? No, they called it Jordan. And at that time, they looked at the Palestinian Football Club, the Palestine Wine Company. They were all Jewish. The Palestinian football team, all Jews. The Arabs who lived there didn't have a national identity at that time. But looking and seeing that the Jews were building up the infrastructure for a state, many of the surrounding Arab states and some of the Arabs in the land started to get worried that actually the Jews may achieve establishing an actual state in the place of the British or in the place of the Ottomans. And so they started attacking the Jews. In 1920s, you had like the Nabi Musa riots, you had the Hebron massacre, you had massacre after massacre of the Jewish people that were living in the land. And the British said, this is not good. We're getting out of here. The Jews and the Arabs are killing each other. They're killing us. We can't deal with it. And Bevan, the dog, had the chutzpah to say this. He told the British Parliament that Bevan was the then foreign minister, that Britain had no right to give the land to the Jews or to the Arabs. They had no right to partition it between them. This is after he'd already given away 78% of the Arabs. But that's it. So the British said, we can't deal with this. And they said, we're giving the problem to the United Nations. The United Nations then came along and said, we think the land should be partitioned based on the population centres. So where are the Jews living, where are the Arabs living? And that gives you the rough borders that you see today. So Israel said, we think all the land should be ours because it was promised to us, but we'll accept a small percentage of what was British Mandatory Palestine. The Arab states surrounding Israel said forget about it, and they invaded. And 5 Arab armies marched on Israel under the mantra of I'll give you a few of the mantras that they were saying. Haj Amin al-Husseini said, "Oh my Muslim brother, I declare a jihad. Slaughter the Jews, slaughter them all." Azam Pasha said that, who was the leader of the Arab League, turned around and said, I think it was him, they said, we will pave the roads from Damascus to Al-Quds, Jerusalem, with the skulls of Jews. This is all because the Jews said yes to having a state. So these Arab armies invaded with genocidal intentions, and by the grace of God, we repelled their invasion and we crushed our enemies. They told told us that they were going to pave the roads with our skulls. We had one rifle between every 3 soldiers, and yet we repelled them. They had the greatest, the Jordanian army, the Arab League, the Arab Legion, was armed by the British with the best British weaponry. It had British officers, and yet, incredibly, a collection of refugees from Europe, of refugees from the Arab world, and a few people who'd never left the land were able to repel these much mightier and more powerful armies by the grace of God. Alhamdulillah. And so Israel then established its borders, or the temporary borders, and this is one of the many misconceptions. People assumed that those borders were permanent borders. They weren't. They were armistice lines. They were temporary ceasefire lines. Jordan agreed to stop fighting in Israel, and Israel agreed to stop fighting Jordan around the West Bank borders. Jordan conquered the old city of Jerusalem, the holiest site for Jews, which had a Jewish population majority since at least 1850. Jordan conquered it, ethnically cleansed all the Jews. But Egypt did the same in Gaza. And so Israel said, we will agree to temporary borders, we'll stop fighting each other along these lines. And the Arab world looked at that and thought, nah mate, and they attacked again in 67, and there's been repeated attacks on Israel because the Arab world opposes, or the Muslim world more importantly, opposes the existence of Israel as a Jewish state. October the 7th was the latest manifestation of that genocidal desire to eliminate the Jewish state. And so that's a very, very, very brief history of it. Would you have questions, you have more you want to ask me, or does that cover it?
Do you see that the nation of Israel coming together again as a fulfillment of prophecy, or because some Jews do not see it that way and they oppose the nation?
So I think you have to be willfully blind to not look at the miracle that we're experiencing. I don't care whether you're religious, you're secular. You had the survivors of the Holocaust, the survivors of the Arab massacres. You had these people that shouldn't exist. The Jewish people should not be here. We've been, the 4chan person saying amen. It's so nice to meet a black racist. It's like, it boggles the mind. So the Jewish people have been persecuted. The Inquisition, the Crusade, the Farhud, the Almohads, the Holocaust, there's massacre after massacre by much mightier empires. Like the Egyptians oppressed us, the Babylonians oppressed us, all of these regimes oppressed us, and they've all disappeared. Yet this tiny little desert tribe is still here because they were prophesied to still be here. And so once you can look at the miraculous nature of the survival of the Jewish people, we have to ask, well, to what end? Why are they still here? Why have they survived genocide, persecution? And then you look and say, this in the history of nations, this has never happened. People, after 2,000 years, were able to resuscitate their nation, and then from around the world, thousands and thousands and thousands of Jews joined their Jewish brothers in that land. Then you have to be willfully ignorant to not see divine providence there. And so for me, I absolutely see the return of the Jewish people as being foretold. It's not for sale. It's certainly not free.
Borders.
That's on topic.
British mandate Palestine. The borders were drawn up, right?
Yes.
By the League of Nations. So Israel today is going beyond those borders.
So Israel hasn't. So first of all, the modern borders most people were talking about were proposed by the United Nations in 1947, and Israel has gone beyond those borders, but that's because those borders were suicidal. And so, like in the latest war, Israel has taken the other side of Har Hermon, the other side of Mount Hermon, and that's because Mount Hermon is a dead spot on the radar, and it also towers above Israel. So not only can Israel not see rockets, planes, whatever attacking because there's a dead spot, but they can also, once anyone's on top of that hill, they can lobby rockets and missiles down on Tel Aviv, on anywhere in Israel. And so I believe that Israel is justified in taking the other side of that mountain for security. I don't believe that Israel has a right to then march on Damascus or on Idlib or on Paris or on anywhere else. Israel has a right to its ancestors. Jews have a right to their ancestral homeland and their ancestral homeland alone, in my opinion.
How do you respond to Muslims saying that Israel is committing, even before October 7th, Israel was committing genocide against Hamas?
So you have to explain to me how the population went from 1.26 million to, the numbers vary from 5 million to 9 million to 15 million Palestinians alive today. That's a phenomenal genocide where there's an absolute population explosion and very few deaths.
But that's not entirely correct. Just because the population has increased, it seems...
Stop hating each other. Stop.
We don't hate each other, we only hate you, brother.
But just because the population has increased, it doesn't mean that there's been atrocities that have happened.
Genocide and atrocities are two different things.
Sorry?
Words are important. He said genocide, you said atrocity. They're not the same
The
thing.
word that they're using is genocide.
Okay, I'll genocide, right?
What is a genocide?
Mass killing.
No. Kind of. Genos, like ethnicity, a group of people. Side, killing. So it's to do with killing off an entire people, or the objective of killing off an entire people through violent means, through preventing them from having children, or whatever it may be. But bringing an end to a people. That's not what's happening in Israel, Palestine. I don't believe in Palestine, but that's not what's happening there.
Okay.
What's happening there is a conflict, an ethno-religious conflict, in which the death toll is relatively low for a war that's been going on for nearly 100 years. I don't know, more people have, well, we can go to numbers, but if you look at like Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, any of these states that surround Israel, they got death toll 10 times the size of Israel's for the entire conflict for that 76-year period.
They do, but that's like, again, I'm not...
But bring it back to genocide.
One life for 100 lives, if it's an innocent life, it's completely wrong.
Well, again,
So I don't necessarily like that.
no, that's not true. So, if you've got 1,000 people here,
Yes.
yeah, and you've got one person here, and you've got and you've got Hamas firing at this 1,000 people here,
Yes.
and if they fire back,
Yes.
they'll kill Hamas, but they'll also tragically kill this one innocent civilian.
Yes.
It's a moral question. Do you accept that to save 1,000 people, one person tragically dies?
Yeah.
That's so. There are arguments.
Well, I can put it to you in a slightly different way, the way that I personally think about it, is that I'm an American and I carry a gun every day, right? And if say you were to rob me and to steal my phone and then run off into that crowd, if I empty the clip into that crowd and I kill you, but I also kill other innocent people, this is clearly illegitimate, or this would be considered morally wrong.
Yeah, I'd agree.
On a like a
Completely
individual
agree.
level.
Completely agree.
But then when it comes to the state, it seems that the Israeli state has the ability to...
So we could.
Isn't that the Israeli state has the ability to kind of violate that moral principle? The idea of, let's do an artillery attack on a hospital because Hamas are there, but there's also innocent women and children.
So that's not what happens. So what they do is they empty the hospital and they create humanitarian corridors for the patients to escape.
Yes.
And there's plenty of footage of them doing this. And then they attack the Hamas positions.
Plenty of footage argument.
So I would say if Hamas are fight, so Israel's job, the IDF's job, is to protect its citizens, be they Arab or Jewish. Hamas's job is to protect its citizens. So if Israel was fighting Hamas from our hospitals, that would be abhorrent and immoral, and it would be the IDF that would be inviting potential death upon those innocent people. Hamas are inviting death on their people by waging war from places that are supposed to be safe. The issue isn't Israel responding to Hamas. The issue is that Hamas are hijacking safe spaces, and yeah.
This is why I find it's kind of like morally questionable, because like if
I told you, Sheikh, it's not for sale. It's not free. We put a lot of effort into.
I like to stand here. Oh!
يا كلب يا خنزير يا كلب جهنم لا جهنم for you.
Now we're going Jannah.
He's having a conversation, please.
Who asked you to interview?
Hey, shut up, man. I can smell your breath.
Shut your mouth.
Pray for Allah to give you hair.
From them, mate.
Look how they salivate in the mouth when they see a Jew.
I know, right? Your anti-Semitism is showing. Wipe it, destroy it. Your hatred is showing. Wipe it.
This is the entire. These people, like this gentleman here who sent me a death threat earlier today, escaped a conflict of their making in Iraq and import their primitive conflict to a nice developed nation like the UK.
Stop stealing from Tesco and Sainsbury's. I know it's in your blood.
They say that Israel had a blockade of Gaza.
Yes.
Right, and they blocked.
So this is the best thing. Yes, Israel doesn't allow that much movement between. I mean, it allows much more than Egypt, but it doesn't allow as much movement as people would like between Israel and Gaza. Guess what? Gaza is literally at war with Israel and has been since Hamas took control of the Gaza Strip. Gaza has two borders though. Gaza has a border with Egypt.
Why do we not talk about
Who lives in Egypt?
Why do we not talk about
It's the Arabs. Who lives in Gaza? Arabs. Your mum's a Jew.
No, your mum is a...
My mum is a Jew, thank you.
She is a Jew. What else? Your dad's photo. Your dad's photo.
So, Gaza has a border with Egypt. If people want to see greater movement of people and goods between Gaza, they should have a word with the Egyptians. Not the nation that the Gazans are telling that they're going to kill. Not the nation that the Gazans inflicted October the 7th on. Of course we don't allow weapons to flow over that border. Of course we control what goes into Gaza because they want to kill us. If you have an issue with that, speak to Sisi. Ask him to open the southern border. And then if he doesn't, ask yourself why he doesn't.
He's a Zionist.
Your mum's a Zionist.
More than Zionists themselves.
Your mum is a Zionist.
Tell him.
There was free movement between West Bank and Israel and Gaza before.
So what people don't understand is no nation has free movement. You try and walk into America, particularly now with Donald Trump and the charge.
You can.
No.
I'm a Texan, okay?
At the border like this. Pow.
This 4chan is Mexican, sounds English, doesn't look like a Nazi. He's a walking contradiction.
Right, you eat all sorts of
No, borders exist. Border security exists. Nations control their borders. Israel is under no obligation to allow anything through its border. It's through the good grace of the Israeli people and the Israeli government that they allow so many goods to flow into Gaza. They allow so many Gazans to get treated in Israeli hospitals. That they allow Gazans to use electricity from Israel. That's the good grace of Israel. It's no other nation that I can think of supplies its enemies in this way, and yet it's turned around as if Israel is somehow the bad guy for providing electricity to its enemy.
As someone wearing a Zionist hoodie, what is the long-term, as a Zionist I'm assuming you are, what's the long-term solution with regard to this conflict, in your opinion, not as a representative of the entire Jewish race?
No, I am the representative of the entire Jewish race. As that representative, I will tell you that the intention is no. So, truthfully, this is not our intention. We are acting in a defensive way rather than an unoffensive way. We are reactive rather than proactive. On October the 7th, we suffered the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. We responded to try and free our hostages and prevent any such attack happening again. And we are now faced with the reality of what now? The day after, the big conversation. And I keep on telling people, me personally, I don't...
Really, it's been this way for a fairly long time. October 7th was obviously bad, but it's been this situation.
So my answer addresses that. For me, UNRWA has been in charge of the education in Gaza for since basically the 50s. And UNRWA has a definition of a Palestinian refugee being that they only stop being a a refugee when they either die or they conquer Israel. And UNRWA schools have been radicalizing generation. The overwhelming majority of people that took part in October the 7th were educated by UNRWA. Hania was an UNRWA teacher. Al-Sharif, the leader of the Hamas in Lebanon, was an UNRWA teacher. And so UNRWA has been in charge of the education. Qataris, Iranians and Turks a little bit have been influencing the foreign policy, the financing, the Gazans. So what I would like to see is the absolute abolition of UNRWA and replacing extremist, expansionist, destabilizing forces like the Iranians, like the Qataris, like the Turks, with moderate forces like the Emiratis, like the Saudis, because I believe they are more interested in regional stability.
Saudis, as a Zionist, you consider the Saudis to be moderate?
I believe them to be much more moderate than the Qataris, yes. Yeah, now, there's a religious nation, and there's...
They're Wahhabis, are they not?
So what you'll find is there's huge reformation going on in Saudi Arabia today, and it's only because of Saudi Arabia that I believe that the Emiratis were able to forge peace with the Jewish state.
That state of affairs is because that MBS and the royal family in Saudi Arabia have kind of bent the knee to the United States?
No, I think it's not that they've bent the knee to the United States, it's they face an existential threat in the expansionist Shia regime that neighbours them, and in order to weather any such attack, they need strategic alliances with nations like Israel, like America, because it's in that Israel poses no threat to Saudi Arabia. Despite us having Khaybar originally, we're not interested in marching on Khaybar. We're not interested in taking any part of the Hijaz. We're interested in surviving on our own land, and the Saudis recognise that. The Emiratis recognise that. And so I think with someone like Trump, I think we could see the Saudis coming to the table and normalising relations with Israel, and they will probably force some. They will force some sort of deal with the Palestinians that the Israelis would not be receptive to. So the Saudis actually have a powerful hand in this, in shaping what happens next. And
more than Iran?
Iran's dead. Like Nasrallah, where's Nasrallah? Where's any of the Hezbollah leadership? Where's Assad? Iranians are terrified. The Iranian people have been rising up for generations now, and they've just watched their fearsome overlords, their entire military expansionist ambitions for decades. They've been building these proxies. Like Hezbollah was their biggest deterrent for Israel attacking the nuclear facilities. So the people of Iran have now just watched these mighty armies crumble as one tiny little Jewish state absolutely eliminated everything, as a ragtag band of jihadis took out some. In what way?
It's slightly disingenuous to regard it, well, the billions of dollars that we've given you in aid.
Do you know how much? Do you know the GDP of Israel? The billions that America gives is tiny, and the aid that America gives. Listen, Habibi. Sorry, you're not Muslim. You can still be back, Habibi, listen. The aid that America gives comes in the form. When it gives aid to Jordan, Egypt, any of these nations, it's aid, it's money. When it comes to Israel, it's basically credit. The American arms industry, the Israelis are given a check that they can only spend on American arms.
Right.
And then, so listen. No, it's not how aid works with other nations at all. It's not for military contracts. And Israel then takes those weapons, enhances them, because we've got some smart guys in Israel. They enhance the tech and then give it back to the Americans. It's win-win from the Americans. They say, here's a big check which you have to spend with us.
Win-win if you're not a taxpayer. If you're a Zionist,
if you're a taxpayer, if you're a taxpayer, of course there's a win for you. The arms industry is one of the biggest employers in America.
Yes.
Not only is that, the enhancements that the Israelis give to those weapons makes America a safer place. America has strategic interest. America has strategic interest to do with oil. You guys drink a lot of oil. You drink more oil than the Irish drink alcohol. You are thirsty.
America and Israel don't decide to take Iran's oil.
I preferred you with the mask. Put the mask back on.
And Israel will not exist without America. Israelis killed 1,200 100 of their own people.
So, Ashkenazi Jews are a minority population in Israel. The majority of Jews in Israel are a lot darker than me. However, Jews' skin color is this really annoying Western fixation. You know, like, I'm white, I'm oppressed, I'm black, I'm oppressed, he's black, he's white, he's brown, he's slightly browner, he must be really oppressed because his skin tone is this. No, he's more oppressed because he's lighter skinned. We don't have that distinction. The Jewish people are a people, and whether you are fair-skinned or dark-skinned, genetic studies show that we're all related. And surprise, surprise, the Jews that lived in India for 1,000 years intermarried with some Indians and look a little darker than me. My ancestors, my Jewish ancestors, lived in Poland before they came to, well, before that they came from Israel, but they lived in Poland. And surprise, surprise, they married into some Poles and their skin color lightened. My personal family, I have English, Irish, Jewish blood. I'm an example of that. It doesn't mean, however, that I can't trace my ancestry back to Israel. The argument that the Jews are the colonizers is insane. When the English and the Europeans came from Europe to America, they brought a religion that had never been there, Christianity. They brought a language that had never been spoken there, French, English. They created cities like New York, New England, New Jersey. When the Jews returned or re-established their home in Israel, they didn't create New Odessa. They didn't create New Kiev. They created, or didn't create anything, they reverted back to the original names. Hebron, pick up the Bible, Hebron. Yerushalayim, Jerusalem. And what's even better is the Arabic names, the so-called people we're colonizing, hinder the fact that they are the colonizer. I'll give you an example. In the 1600s, a Christian from, I think, Denmark went to Israel and the Holy Land and documented all of the populations. He found a village of Christians, 16 families, called Allah. Before Allah was Allah, it was Bayt Allah. Before it was Bayt Allah, which is house of God, it was Bet El, Bethel in the Bible, the Jewish name. What do you think Bet El, or what do you think is next to the biblical side of Bethel today? Ramallah, Umallah, Bayt Allah, Bethel. You can go to almost every Arabic city. Another example, the Holy Al-Quds, Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, Al-Quds, comes from an Arabic word, Bayt Al-Maqdis, the holy house, the holy temple. Where did they get this word, Bayt Al-Maqdis? Beit HaMikdash, thank you, Beit HaMikdash, the Hebrew term for the temple. They call Al-Quds Al-Quds because the Jewish temple stood there.
Muslim copied from Jews.
Stole from Jews.
Bible is copied from Torah. It's all lies, lies, lies. God never gave any book to anybody. God never gave Jews. That's right. What's the name? I had a heart attack. I'm trying to recover.
I wish you were full shlema, the full recovery.
God never gave Israel to Jews. God never gave anything to Muslims. God never gave anything to Christians. God have told me, you are the Messiah. God told me I was the Messiah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Speaker's Corner.
And God said,
That was a perfect
Messiah
punchline.
will have a line on his forehead. His forehead will be slightly concave. This is the sign of Messiah.
And this?
This is on your face.
The Messiah will come to you with a plastic mask and wobbly eyes.
The religions are all lies. They are not true at all. Muslim, Quran is lie, Torah is lie,
Modine's a good guy. I like Modine.
And Jews, they killed their own people on the 7th of October.
Salam alaikum.
1,200 of their own people. Jews killed.
He wants you to talk to me. I just say salam alaikum. I like this man.
All
He said, did you hear that? This Muslim here was surprised that another Muslim would say, peace be upon you to a Jew. A moderate Muslim will say, peace be upon you to a Jew. An extremist lunatic that's been welcomed into this country does not believe that you should wish peace upon Jews.
Okay, listen. First of all, Jewish, is the people of the book, people of the free books. You're allowed to marry them. You understand?
I'm taking them, Mo. I'm taking.
There's no problem with Jewish religion. This is more political. You understand? It's nothing to do with Jewish religion. You understand? So as a Jewish or Christian, are people of the book. They're clean. So if you touch them, they're clean. If you're not people of the book, then you can't marry them. If you touch them, your hand, you have to wash your hand. If you're not people of the book.
Is that why you're wearing gloves? We don't have such a concept. As a Jew, I'll shake anyone's hand as long as you've washed it first. Right. If you want to have some fun, step up, big guy. Step up. You've been haggling from the sidelines. I want to have some fun, and then runs away.